Within professional writing, you'll be asked to write all kinds of evaluations, reviews, assessments, and perhaps even sometimes recommendation letters. When writing evaluations, there's a few things to keep in mind. I want to go through these. I'm going to ask you to write evaluations within emails and within letters both. So please note the formatting for the evaluation or assessment as per assignment. Some general concerns about writing reviews and assessments. First, the format of the document depends upon what your organization generally needs in terms of how comprehensive the review needs to be. Sometimes they'll give you an internal document that will include specific questions to be answered. Sometimes this will be an online form in giving an assessment. As I said, I want you to do just basic kind of email responses or letter responses as per assignment. So I'm going to offer you some established points for review when you write your recommendations. Your organizations or your businesses might give you other established points to follow in writing assessments. Within the review or assessment, you want to be sure to set context for the document itself. You can think here about the history of a project or issue or plan, or if you're writing a recommendation letter, you want to think about the associate's tenure with your organization or how long has the person been working with you. Again, use organizational guidelines in setting up the context here. More generally, also define your role and expectations within a larger project or relationship. For instance, how long have you known the person? If you're writing a letter of recommendation, what is your kind of role if you're describing a particular project? Are you a leader on the project? Are you a participant who's been asked to write a description of the project from within? Begin with points on criteria for measurable achievements within the assessment itself, and then finally develop within points of argument. So you want to set up perhaps some questions to explore for additional support, or set up measurable data for how the project has succeeded or failed, how particular new issues have arisen within the development of the project, or how a particular associate has worked out or failed to work out within your organization. Tone is a significant part of writing good reviews and assessments. So think carefully about tone as you set these things up. Number one, don't be too careful here. You don't want to you want to avoid sounding muddled in your recommendation. Be clear whether you're recommending a person for a job or not recommending a person for a job. Be clear when you're thinking about the success or failure of a project. Be critical, but also be respectful. So you don't want to be too harsh in your assessment, but be clear in it. Then that leads to the last point, which is be respectful, but offer a substantial response. So if you don't want to recommend the person, or you don't recommend a particular course with a project, be open and offer clear points of support for your assessment there. In terms of format for the review or the assessment, start with an opening paragraph that sets context first, so you can summarize the project's history, the person's tenure with the organization. If this is an ongoing set of assessments, you might want to note particular developments since your last review. What milestones perhaps have you crossed in the project as well. Again, define your role within the project itself, your relationship with the person organizationally, if you're writing a letter of recommendation. In the middle paragraph, you want to set up points of evaluation to establish support for your assessment. Again, set clear targets or goals for the project or for the employee or associate. How has the project succeeded? What clear ways has it succeeded? In what ways has the associate been, a strong part of the organization's purpose and mission? And analyze particulars versus general characteristics as best you can. In what ways can you measure a project's success? That would be in terms of costs or revenues, particular milestones crossed. What objectives have you met since you last assessed the project? With the person, you want to think about what specific things has the person done in terms of projects. Don't just simply offer general points about their character. You can offer some of those, but also you want to make it clear that of what the person has achieved within the organization. So note specific projects they might have been involved with. And then if you're within a review, you might also offer or suggest points of change or alternatives within the project, perhaps possible modifications regarding timeline. If it's a piece of writing, what needs to be changed within the writing. Perhaps some guidelines for how an associate might develop more fully professionally within an organization. So alternatives and modifications can be an important part of the assessment. Again, that's one of those places where you want to be respectful and clear. And then finally, a closing paragraph that offers a clear recommendation. So provide a clear choice or a recommended course of action. I'm going to ask you to review some mission statements, choose one of the two, and respond to it. And then also in that final paragraph, you can propose alternatives or future directives, further areas of study. This would be another point where you could think about a timeline here. When do you want to come back and review or reassess the project in the future? In terms of writing a recommendation or reference letter here, there's the format is very similar to a standard assessment. An opening paragraph that sets context, again, define the purpose. This is a letter that recommends, and define the working relationship you have with the associate, how long you've worked with the person, and the circumstances under which you've worked with the person. And then in middle paragraphs, again, substantiate the person's qualities that support your recommendation here. Again, you want to, as opposed to just simply offering kind of vague character reference, you want to think about, what has the person achieved here. If you have access to the advertisement for the job or the position, you want to address specific questions or points of qualification from the ad. In what ways does the person fulfill the kinds of duties and responsibilities that the ad sets forth? Again, if you can come up with particular projects within the person's work history, how they've progressed within the organization, how they've developed, those things are also very strong points of support for a reference or recommendation letter. And then finally, you might want to include 2 paragraphs of support for the person. I'd stay within the focus of one page unless professionally or organizationally they ask for more. And then finally, a closing paragraph here where you summarize your recommendation. Again, summarize the person's qualifications within the paragraph and then offer a clear recommendation of the person. Generally, I try to offer a spectrum of recommendation choices. I offer the person my highest recommendation. I recommend them most highly. I recommend them with reservations, or I do not recommend them. Although I would say that professionally, that if someone asks you for a recommendation and you don't think you can recommend them to the job, you probably would be best to tell them that they need to find someone who knows their work a little bit better, or who can describe their accomplishments a little bit more fully. So these are points to recall as we go through the course of writing assessments over the next few weeks. I'll ask you to do a series of these, both letters and emails. Offer some clear points of assessment within each of these projects. And if you have questions, please let me know. Thanks.